Hey VC, it's Jim, Vinyl Designs here. I wanted to talk about some records that I picked up in the last few days, most of them at my local record store, which is called The Last Record Store, which is no longer ironic because it actually is the last record store in my town. And it's the record store that I kind of grew up going to and spent a lot of time in that record store. And anyways, I'll just kind of go through the pile that I picked up there. Most of them were used and they were, real reasonable. So that made me realize how much of music, at least how much of this replacement collection is being sort of dictated by what is on hand at what price, rather than sort of exactly what music I would buy, price were no object, and availability were no object. And it's a funny thing when you realize how much of your music, how many of your records come from a sort of value proposition of this record goes into my collection because it cost $2 or because it cost $4 or and then there are records that I'll spend $30 on. I think the most I've ever spent on a record maybe I think $75, which is a lot of money to spend on a record, but worth it for some things. And there are definitely records that I've picked up that I've got for $5 or $10 that I would definitely spend a lot more on, and fortunately didn't have to. But it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Anyways, the main reason why I'm doing this video is just to kind of do a quick, I guess they're called vinyl finds, and we'll go through them. So the first record is an Australian band that I first got introduced to when they played a local gig here in Santa Rosa at a small place. My daughter's band opened up for them, and I don't even think they were the main act. I think they were opening, I think they were the middle act, and I don't remember who the main act was at that time. But they were amazing, absolutely amazing. If you ever get the chance to see this band live, do so. And it's the Gooch Palms. They are phenomenal live. Their music's really fun, really, how to describe them? They're sort of like if Devo was a two-person kind of White Stripes outfit. I don't know how else to describe them. They have this weird sense of kind of rhythm and timing and that Devo had, and but at the same time they're very sort of kind of Cramps, kind of classic rock and roll, garage rock. Really fun band though. Super energetic, super fun. This record is called Novos. I believe it is their first record, but it's hard to tell. I can't really, I suppose Discogs probably would have had their discography, so I should have looked it up there. I didn't. But I think it's their first album. And as far as I know, they've only got 2. I could be wrong on that though. But this is really a good record, worth picking up if you ever come across it, or if you ever get the chance to see Gooch Palms, do so. Next is B-52's Whammy. This was just in the used bin, and it was a reasonable price, and picked it up. Like most of the records in this pile, that's what it's going to be. Whammy was a little later in their career, mid-'80s. This is the one with Legal Tender, and I think that was the big hit off this record. It's a good record, but definitely not, in my mind, among their best. I do tend to like some of their earlier stuff a little bit better. I just think it had little more rawness, but it's still really good. This is Joan Jett and the Blackhearts album. I'm actually not sure about this one. I had, I think, 2 or 3 Joan Jett records, but didn't have this one. It might be live. I haven't listened to it yet. Might be studio. I'm not sure. But really love Joan Jett. Saw her back in 81 or 82, something like that. She came to the fairgrounds here in Santa Rosa, and that was fun to see back in sort of her heyday. Johnny Cash, I believe this is Greatest Hits Volume 2. It's got some great tracks on here. Shel Silverstein's Boy Named Sue, and some other great tracks, but I don't have any Johnny Cash in among the replacements yet, and so this was available for a good price and a good place to start. Next is Laurie Anderson's Home of the Brave. This is it's sort of the soundtrack to a film that Laurie Anderson did in the 80s. I think it's 8 of the songs from the film, but so it's just a small subset of what's a sort of live performance film. And I think that a lot of the tracks in the film were from a previous album, and so they didn't put it on this record, and so this is just a sort of small subset of them. But really nice stuff. If you like 80s music, you're probably going to like Laurie Anderson. If you like sort of, I don't know, if you're not already listening to Laurie Anderson, what else? Current electronica is really interesting way of kind of looking back through. She was kind of this bridge between the sort of no wave and the proto-electronica like Kraftwerk and some of the other bands that were around late 70s. But she came at it from much more of a art and performance direction. I love her work. She's always been experimental. She's always been interesting for forever. Next is Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, Eurythmics. Again, really reasonable price. I think it was $4. And I thought, I haven't listened to this record in probably 30 years, and I ought to listen to it again. And this was a great record to re-listen to because it made me realize how much Annie Lennox is just a straightforward soul singer. This record, especially side A, I listened to it again, and it had never hit me before what a kind of straightforward R&B soul record it is. Side B is a little bit more of what people, I think, and certainly the way that I envision Eurythmics in my head, is a little bit more of the kind of 80s sort of Ultravox kind of, Euro electronica sound. That's a little bit more of the sort of side B on here, especially songs like Jennifer and some of these others that are a little bit more moody and not quite so kind of in your face R&B. But it was a nice thing to revisit and to see that, because she definitely embraced more of the soul and R&B as her entire focus when she left the Eurythmics, and I see that it was always there. The next is Human Sexual Response, In a Roman Mood. I had this record, and I don't remember the last time I listened to it. Probably in the mid 80s. I listened to their earlier record a bit more, the one with What Does Sex Mean to Me? And so I'm curious to revisit this one and see what I think of it. I really liked their sound. How do I describe them? I hate using the term new wave, so I'll probably try to never use it. So I would say early 80s indie. That's probably the best way to describe them. Alternative, quirky, fun and interesting and odd is probably the best way to describe them. Next, Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic. When I was maybe 11, I think I was 11 or so when this came out, maybe 11 or 12. I was a little skate punk, and as a real skate punk in the 70s, we didn't listen to punk. We listened to stuff like Aerosmith and Foreigner, and yeah, that's just what we listened to. And it was this record has a lot of memories. Uncle Salty and big 10-inch record. I didn't realize what that song was about until many years later. So I remember singing along to it as a kid and just thinking it was talking about records. So yeah, and maybe that has some connection to why I really love 10-inch records. Anyways. So the next record is Peter Gabriel's So. I had this record originally when it came out, and I think that this is a record that, for me, a little like the Eurythmics record, needed a revisit. The first time I had it, I think I didn't listen to it as much as I should have. I didn't give it as much credit as I should, because I felt like everybody had discovered Peter Gabriel, and being, a teenager, and you know how music is when you're a teenager and you want it to be all yours. You don't want to share it with anybody. And I think that I just assumed that Peter Gabriel had developed a very commercial approach by this record and had kind of engineered pop songs out of it, and so I had kind of a backlash to it. And that's really unfair as I think about it now, because when I re-listened to it a couple nights ago, and I probably haven't listened to it in 25 years, I really realized, because I've listened to a lot of the other records a lot through the years, the earlier records, and I realized for the first time that it really is, a pure Peter Gabriel record. It's not different in the way that it felt at the time to me, because I think it was everything that I was bringing to it. I think that what it was is a great record, and the world had caught up to Peter Gabriel rather than Peter Gabriel had catered to the world. The one difference I would say on this is that there are a couple ballads on this that don't really exist too much on the earlier records. The earlier records don't have that kind of softer side of Peter Gabriel. And I think that is a totally valid and fair thing to bring forward. And I think that's one of the things that really helped this record catch on for a lot of people. And I'm glad. It's in retrospect, it seems like he was in a healthier place than the earlier records. So good record, worth revisiting and giving more respect than I think I gave it. Yeah. The next couple records are Erykah Badu, Baduizm, and Mama's Gun. These are really, I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times I've listened to these records. It's a favorite around the house. My wife loves Erykah Badu. We saw her, I think, last year on Valentine's Day, and it was just such an amazing show. We saw her at the Armory in San Francisco, and Thundercat opened, and it was just such a great audience, and such a I don't know. It just it was perfect for Valentine's Day because it was in the Armory, which until a couple weeks before that had been the home of I think kink.com. So it was where they filmed all these weird porn films, and it had just recently been converted to a concert space, and then the crowd was just, everybody was there as a couple, and it was such a San Francisco crowd, so it was just so diverse in sexual orientation and race and gender and everything. It was just a cool show. And she was amazing. I mean, I can't even describe how good. So if you get the chance to see her live, do it. But both Baduizm and Mama's Gun are kind of essential Erykah Badu records. If you don't know Erykah Badu, phenomenal soul, R&B, hip hop. Just worth a listen. Always. Mama's Gun. These, I'm assuming that these both are represses, recent represses. They're double LPs. I had them originally on CD. I didn't have the vinyl. And I'm glad to find them in the repress on vinyl because I think just, looking through them, I haven't listened to them yet, but looking through them, they seem to have done a really nice job. The next record that I picked up was, the Erykah Badu were new. Everything else in that pile was from the used bin, and all were, really reasonable Erykah Badu. Not exorbitant, but new records. The next record, I bought it new, and I bought it based solely on recommendations from the VC. And so, and I can't pick out anybody in particular because I think I've seen this record on at least 4 videos. So I thought, well, I'll just pick it up. And I never heard a clip of it either on any of the videos, so nobody did a needle drop on it. But I just thought it sounds good. The idea sounds good, and everybody's passion for it was great. So I picked this up as a blind buy, and that's Durand Jones and the Indications, American Love Call. Thanks everybody, because this is a great record. I wanted to make sure that everybody heard that, and anybody else that hasn't heard this record yet, great R&B, classic. It feels very Motown. It's just a beautiful record. Worth the time. Worth going out and buying a new record rather than waiting for the dollar bin kind of stuff. Thanks, and I'll be listening to that a lot. The last record in this pile for me is one that I heard about a month ago, and I can't tell you how thrilled I was to hear about this record. I just about lost it, and within 10 seconds I was ordering the pre-order, and I'll just preface this by saying that Portishead is one of my favorite bands ever. Just amazing. Beth Gibbons is, I think, one of the greatest singers of all time. She just puts so much emotion and experimentation in her voice and singing style. It's so raw and yet so sort of intricately carved at the same time. I don't know how else to describe Beth Gibbons. But she just has a beautiful voice, haunting and kind of gut-wrenching, and just a lovely voice. And then Henryk Górecki, the modern classical composer, is possibly one of my favorite classical composers. And then I found out that that a version of Symphony of Sorrowful Songs with Beth Gibbons singing was happening, and that was just, let me take this out of the wrapper. So this is Gorecki and Beth Gibbons. I have not heard this yet. I haven't had, it just showed up yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it. But I couldn't wait to tell anybody about it because just so, the idea is amazing, and I can't imagine it's not phenomenal. And the presentation, it's like a book. This is such a nicely made and packaged item. I even if it sounds terrible, even if if everything is a disaster, just as an object, this thing is amazing. It's like a book. It's like, you know, triple thick cardboard, and then this booklet that's inside it is just beautifully produced. I'm not sure how much I'm getting into the camera, but it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then the record is on, you know, 180 gram vinyl. It comes actually with a CD, so it comes with a download code and a CD. They didn't hold back on that. And then there's this, what appears to be a photographic print of the composer, or not the composer, the conductor and Beth Gibbons. It's beautiful, actually. Anyways, I am really looking forward to listening to this, and would highly recommend, even though I haven't actually heard it, just go out and get it. Just because on paper, I'm just so excited about it. Anyways, that is it for this little video. I was trying to keep it short and sweet, and I hope that some of that was interesting or entertaining, and thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. I'll try and put something else up soon. I'm working on, I have a couple things that I'm working on that are much bigger projects, and are taking some time to produce.